Also, two of the players that have had really an enormous amount of success over the past year or two, call it, and they are facing off. Now, as we come into the round, you can see on the graphic there that Andrea Mengucci has already won game one. So that means that we're kicking things off with game number two. And Gabriel Nassif, in order to keep the dream alive, is going to have to win back-to-back games. And that's just to stay in the bracket at all. Remember, this is an elimination match as well. A loss, and you're done.
Yeah, and excellent starting hand here for Andrea Mengucci. Just a classic Thoughtseize and Growth Spiral, and opting for not going for the Thoughtseize right away, but instead going for the turn two, potentially the turn two Growth Spiral into Thoughtseize here, which not only allows you to get ahead on mana, but also just slows down your opponent's game plan at the same time.
And there it is, Growth Spiral on the stack. There's an Overgrown Tomb or a Swamp that you can use to cast the Thoughtseize, and that's what we see here, a Swamp. Take a look at what Nassif is working with. And it's going to be the late game stuff.
Wow.
Mengucci. Oh!
You didn't have that when I cast Thoughtseize.
Boy, these Thoughtseizes have been taking good stuff, but then the really good stuff follows right up. That's the spell that you can play immediately. This does give Andrea Mengucci perfect information about what Nassif is working with outside of that Growth Spiral that was just freshly drawn. Here comes Narset activation number 2.
Yeah, but Nassif not able to find land number 4 here. And we're going to see the Shark Typhoon from Andrea Mengucci be able to finish off this Narset here.
Okay. There was a Thoughtseize found there with Narset. And that means that Andrea Mengucci needs to do this Shark now just to not give Nassif the option to take it away. So there's 2/2 Shark, and it's a land, so that worked out well. Only one card to take, and it's a Growth Spiral. Good news and bad news, I suppose. You've got all lands left in hand. But hey, there's another Shark Typhoon, and this Narset Parter Veils is going to be in the graveyard. Also, Nassif, with no more lands currently, is going to need to hit one off of Growth Spiral here to keep the lands flowing.
Also, I mean, Nassif's going to need to find a way to respond to the Shark Typhoons, right? I mean, we're going to see a 2/2 and a 3/3 Shark just putting pressure on Nassif's life total.
Yeah,
and he currently has no answer.
Right. Things looking good here for Mengucci, especially given the Thoughtseize off the top of the library here from Nassif. We may see a cycled Shark Typhoon, and then hopefully a land is what Nassif's thinking. It could also be a Growth Spiral, and then maybe even a Thoughtseize. And if that's the case, then Mengucci gets to basically increase the clock, just throw down another Shark. Let's see what happens. Not any wiggle room here for Nassif, Paul. He is in a very, very precarious situation, being a little bit behind on board, plenty of cards in hand, but way behind on lands.
Yeah, and probably not even firing off the Thoughtseize because he already knows 3 of the cards in Mengucci's hand. So there's a very strong chance that Andrea just doesn't have a relevant spell here, that it could just be a land, and you just don't want to whiff on the Thoughtseize right now. So I think Nassif's best play here is to just pass, cast a Growth Spiral, hope to hit a land, ideally maybe a blue source, so you can cycle the Shark Typhoon as well to just keep going through your deck to try to hit land drops. But I mean, again, these just Shark Typhoon tokens are going to be a very, very big problem here for Nassif.
Yeah, there's an Ether Gust off the top as well for Mengucci. Curious to see if he fires it off on Growth Spiral.
Oh.
I mean, it's tempting, right?
Yeah, possibly, right? Because Nassif's already missed land drops, and
there it is. He does.
Yeah.
I like it. And Nassif doesn't have any choice but to put it on the bottom. He needs to find lands, and he doesn't. He finds another Shark Typhoon, so he can just spend a bunch of turns spinning his wheels, try to hit land drops. But if you're taking 5 a turn, there's only so long you can do that for, even with Mengucci flooding out a bit here. That one was at least a Triumph that he can cycle and see what he finds. But bang, bang, a bunch of reactive cards in hand for Nassif, and not of the removal variety. This Triumph finds another land, so nothing doing here for Mengucci. But the fact is, he doesn't need anything else right now.
Yeah, I mean, these Sharks could just go all the way. Now, Nassif can cycle a Shark Typhoon for 1 here, and if he can find a land, then he can make a 1/1 and a 2/2, which would deal with the 3/3 Shark that's in play.
Okay. Gosh, another
But
ether gut? Okay, there's
these
a forest.
okay.
Whew. Nassif hanging on for dear life. He's down a game to Mengucci, and this is an elimination match. He is going to have to do a heck of a lot of work to get out of this mess. His hand has lined up horrendously against Mengucci's negates and ether gusts all day versus a couple of blue sharks. They got there via cycling. Here comes the team once again. So Nassif can help. All right, he's just going to chump block here, it looks like.
Wow, playing it patiently and might pay off here because Mengucci might just run out the Narset. Oh, no. Actually holding on to it really heads up here, knowing that Nassif's mana is pretty taxed, pretty likely to have counter magic, and probably just waiting for a better spot here to be able to resolve that Narset.
Yeah, he knows about the negate in hand as well, so just didn't want to run into it, I suppose. Is there any argument for just throwing it out there and sort of forcing Nassif to do something? I suppose from Mengucci's seat, you just figure he has nothing he can do at this point, so why let him spend his mana at all, right?
Yeah, and curious to see if Nassif just slams the Nissa here, just kind of goes for it, given that he's at 6 and he needs to put something on the board here because that 3/3 shark token is just something that he still can't deal with right now.
Right. He could protect Nissa with his own 2/2 shark, at least enough to get to untap with it. And then he could have a lot more mana available to him. Now, the downside of that, Paul, is look at his hand. Have all the mana you want, right? It's all ether gusts and negates and thought seizes.
Right. But if he does find something off the top, because he does have one turn here, maybe he can find a Hydrate Crisis. Maybe he can find an Uro and escape it. So it seems like you just kind of have to go for the Nissa here, untap your Triome, and then you will still have access to a negate here to potentially stop a Nissa off the top from Andrea Mengucci.
Wow, super safe play here from Nassif. He's going for the Thoughtseize.
Okay, so going for the Thoughtseize here means that he can block the 2/2 and kill.
Cancel that order. Now Nissa, who shakes the world off the top, looks like a game-winning draw for Mengucci, but it's not. And Mengucci knows it. There's negate at the minimum in hand, and I believe, he also knows about Ether Gust too, even though there's actually 3 copies of Ether Gust for Nassif here.
But Nassif still really just needs to find an answer here to that shark. So he's just deciding what he wants to do. It looks like he's just going for the straight up negate here because he doesn't want to worry about potentially having to counter that Nissa on the following turn.
And Mengucci's going to attack with both sharks. That does allow Nassif to trade off for 1, where if he can rip an answer,
Flyer?
It's another counter spell. It's an Essence Scatter. That should do it, right?
That's it. That's going to be the game. And Gabriel Nassif was just not able to find an answer for Shark Typhoon. I mean, Mengucci basically drew nothing this game. He just had 2 sharks and all lands. But it was good enough because
Flood, not this time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where both decks after sideboard board into a lot of reactive counter magic, but they don't have a lot of removal spells.
He also just drew a land for this turn and cycled it into another land just to complete the perfection here. And that is going to do it. Andrea Mengucci becomes the 2nd Italian to continue here, as we saw Luca Magni in the last, in the other lower advance as well.